You're listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast, episode number 91. Welcome to the All Day Ruckoff podcast, episode number 91. This is your host, Brian, and I wanted to thank you so much for tuning in. The All Day Ruckoff podcast focuses on the GRT and Rucking community and includes interviews, motivation, and advice to keep you informed and get you ready for your next event. In this episode, we have an interview with Emily McCarthy, who recently took on a new role at GORUCK. We talk about her first event, which was class number 3, and then get into women in rucking and rucking as a parent. I had a ton of fun talking with her. I've got 2 kids of my own, and I love getting out there rucking with them. She has kids of her own, so it was interesting to hear how she gets the miles in. Before we get into the episode, there are a couple interesting announcements this week. First off, for those who haven't heard, service components are no longer required at GORUCK light, tough, and heavy events, so I found that pretty interesting. Got a post about it, as well as a quote from GORUCK up on the website, so you can get more info about that announcement there. And then we're 7 days into the Ruck Your Dog event, so I hope you're having a great time out there supporting Pets for Patriots, rucking your dog. If you're out there rucking with a dog, then you can check out, we just released a video, 7 tips for rucking with your dog. Those are things I learned rucking with my dog Watson when I was training for my events years ago, before he got old and can't go on those long rucks anymore. I really hope you enjoy this episode with Emily McCarthy, and let's get into the interview. So that first event that you did, class 3, you said that you helped Jason kind of plan out what happened in class 2. So you might have known a little bit more than the other participants what you were getting yourself into. How did it feel doing that first event? Did you have fun at it?
Surprisingly, yes. So, Jason and I, we've always been competitive with each other. We're classmates and on the tennis team together in a lot of the same classes. We both applied to the same college, when we're out of high school, and we're peers, right? So when he came to me and said, hey, I'm going to do this event, kind of like the same one I just did in San Francisco and DC, and your area of familiarization with DC is better than mine since I went to college there. Can you help me plan a route? What's going to be great? And so I was helping with that, and that's when I was like, oh, wait, you can't go on there at night. Like, they're not going to let you. And that's when we had the permit talk, and he just dismissed it. And I was like, well, good luck. Okay. But I was around for the different points of that, definitely the start and the middle and the end. I had Java with me at the time. So, yes, I did have an idea that it was, going to be crawling through mud and getting in cold water and doing these kind of crazy things. But what surprised me was that the one that I shadowed before there were such things as GORUCK shadows, in DC, there were, I think there were 4 maybe 5 people that were doing that. So it felt very casual and intimate, right? When I showed up to New York, I was shocked because there were so many people. Jason had to break it up into 2 different classes. So there was and I didn't know that until I kind of got there. And, I was in the first class, I believe, to go. And because there was 03 and 04. So I was in the first class to go, and I was kind of shocked by how many other people were there. And I was like, okay. And I was the only female, but that was fine. It was actually really funny. I was telling someone the other day, that was when Jason brought the bricks to everyone and would just say, hey, disperse these amongst yourselves, during the admin portion. And I remember being like, well, all these guys, they just grabbed all these bricks, like 6 at a time. Someone probably had 8. And they left me 2. And I was like, all right, I'll have 2. I had a little Echo bag, so I put them in there. And so it was already kind of sandbagging from the start, like not even meaning to. And we just, being in New York City, walking through, all these parks and places at night, and being in Times Square when there's nobody there, I had never experience New York like that. So it ended up being this really special and very memorable event. And, he put us in the Hudson. It was freezing. He put us in the Hudson several times, but I was most angry when, because so this is perfect. This goes right to your point. So I was like, I know what's going to happen. He's going to get us wet. I'm going to bring a dry bag, which I think I just had a Ziploc bag with extra clothes. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to be dry. So when he was going to put us in the water for the first time, I was like, okay, cool. I stripped down to my sports bra and pants and then got wet. And then I got out and I was like, oh, great. I'm going to dry off and put on my dry clothes now. Well, as soon as I put my dry clothes on, he made us go back into the Hudson. And I was like, no. I remember talking to him, like I broke out of role, right? I wasn't just like another participant at that point. I was like, no, I'm your ex-wife. I don't agree with this. You can't do this to us. And he just smiled and was like, get in the water. And I was stuck. Like, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to throw a fit, in front of all these people that I don't know. So I was so pissed at him. I was like yelling at him from the water, like, we want to get out. Like, I was just, he got to me, here I was like, oh, I know what's going to happen. This isn't going to be hard. And then he got under my skin. And I remember it was funny, at the end. But because I was so pissed about that, I remember going up to him and telling him like, it wasn't that hard just to piss him off. So, but it was hard, but it was different then. It wasn't as heavy, the experience wasn't quite as, for lack of a better word, uniform, like now it's like the more weight, everyone's going to get a chance if they're, unless they're trying to hide from it, they're going to get a chance to really carry something heavy. It wasn't like that. It was more, we just covered more distance, and being an endurance runner, I was fine with that, but the water hazard got me.
Yeah, because that's tough to train for.
Yeah.
And it's not fun to train for. I don't mind running, but I mean...
Cold showers, no way.
Yeah, that is not enjoyable. So your official role at GORUCK is people ops. Is that correct?
Well, it was.
It was.
So I recently recruited my best friend from high school, that a good friend of both Jason and mine, who has almost a 20-year career in HR. She came on board at the beginning of this year to head up our people ops. So she has taken over that role, which I had kind of, by default, as we grew, realized that, someone needed to manage, these types of things. So we actually have an expert now in charge of that. And so far it's been really great, because it's always great when you can bring in someone who does what you've been doing so much better, in the sense that this is their area of expertise. So I've done that, and I would manage certain partnerships that I work with, or, I always tell people, like, I just always did the kind of miscellaneous tasks, and now it's been pretty cool, because the last, just since January, we're having Monica come on board as the head of people ops. I've been able to turn my focus to women at GORUCK, and thinking about, having someone finally that's, a woman in charge of that, and looking at that from all aspects, and the rucking for women, the training for women, the events for women, the gear, the apparel, and then just who are these women of GORUCK in our community.
That's wonderful. It's so fun when you're able to, like you said, bring people in who can do what you were doing, but, take it away from you and do it better. Sometimes I wish I could do that, maybe for podcast editing or something else, video editing. When you're in the water at that DC event, you brought your clothes, got into them, all your dry stuff, and they were thrown back in the water. Did you ever think sometime in the future, down the road, maybe 7 or so years, 8 years that you would be doing this at GORUCK?
No, I don't think I even thought I would be doing this a year ago. It's really exciting to think of, because it always just felt like, GORUCK's this very masculine brand, based on special forces training and special forces roots. And, who am I to be a part of that, right? But, what you find as you get, even as a person, if we were to relate it to growing up, right, is that you're not just defined by one thing or one aspect. There's a lot more to a person's story, just the way there's more to a company's story or an organization's story. And in the GORUCK brand, the reality is that the brand is the people who make it up, right? And, while Jason and Special Forces roots will always have a place and always be a part of that origin story, I look back on it and think of, my origin story is GORUCK's origin story as well. And, my background and what I did simultaneously alongside when Jason was in the Army it contributed sometimes mostly behind the scenes, which is interesting, right? I kind of feel like I'm a behind the scenes kind of worker in person. And, I think Jason was a reluctant, front of the scenes kind of person. If you actually ever talked to him or knew him beforehand, he's an introvert who's had to become an extrovert in a lot of ways. And I relate to that. But, my time at GORUCK has been kind of making sure everything kind of stays intact and it's running, right? And supporting the team and making sure that those things happen. And it's interesting now to kind of be moving in a direction where it's kind of leading the way to open up to represent the women's voice in it, because it's always been there, and just the way that, I think about it a lot in the sense that what I was doing with the government in a way would be supporting, the types of things that SF teams were doing on the front lines, and like I always was doing like behind the scenes sort of work. And it's cool because it tends to mirror what GORUCK has been. And so now the question is sort of, telling that story, talking about, my connection to GORUCK and my background and training, and using that to, really connect with a lot more women in our community.
And there are a lot of women who work for GORUCK.
Yes.
I was on the careers page, and just scrolling up and down, and the last time I was down there in the office, you mentioned that GORUCK kind of portrays, or at least used to portray, more of like this tough, the masculine brand. But there's a lot of women who work for GORUCK. Yes.
And it's the first employee that Jason ever hired was a female. And so it's never, like you said, it was more of just an outward appearance. There's always been women at GORUCK working and doing great things. I think right now we're at the height of, let's say we're about at a 30-person staff. A third of us are women, and that's probably the highest it's ever been. But again, that's relative to, we've always, the highest we've ever been is in that 30 range for people. So it's great. And what's really awesome now to see from a team standpoint is that, the vision is clear. We went through those kind of existential questions over the past years, like, are we a events company? Are we a gear company? Are we a leadership company? All these questions, all these different routes to take. And just in the last, I'd say 3, maybe 4 years, has it really crystallized into, we're a rucking company. We are bridging the gap of, military to civilian in terms of a great alternative to running and fitness activity that is community centric, and it has health benefits, and it's social, by the way we define it and the way it's being defined in the community. So, it's been really cool to see how that focus internally has, created, departments and, people. It's not just like the cadre and the support, this kind of binary, simplified system. It's a real team, and it's a team of all types, all ages, all backgrounds, military, civilian, men, women, younger and older, people who are just, the common theme is that they subscribe to our culture. They believe in what we're doing. And, we have, kind of a more lax kind of feel than most. If you walk into our office, it kind of has that tech or startup feel, but there's a lot of traditional stuff too, right? There's a lot of, things that you would remember, harkens to the military, and it's an interesting place, and it's developed, and I like to think that at our best we've been able to evolve while still keeping the brand and the culture intact.
I love it, especially realizing and talking about GORUCK as a rucking company, because I think just writing it down and knowing what you stand for helps with a lot of decision making. And it's funny. I don't know if it's funny or not. It's interesting, right? When GORUCK comes out with apparel or comes out with boots, every now and then you see comments, oh, why is GORUCK coming out with boots? They're a backpack company. Or why is GORUCK coming out with apparel? They're a backpack company. Well, 10 years ago, GORUCK wasn't a backpack company. I mean, you could do the same thing back in 2010. Why is GORUCK coming out with a backpack? They're not a backpack company. And now, here you are producing some of the absolute best backpacks that money can buy, that can go through and survive all these events, and not only survive, but somehow look better after the events.
Yeah, they're broken in.
Absolutely. And so that whole idea that GORUCK's a rucking company, I think really solves and answers a lot of those questions. Like, GORUCK's not just a backpack company. They're not just an events company. They're a rucking company, and all of that stuff, the backpacks, the rucks, the events, the shoes, the USA made GORUCK gear, all of that falls into it so well. And that's a really cool thing to think about.
We just had to come to terms with the fact that we needed to build our own category on this, right? Instead of trying to, say, okay, well, we're a gear company that does events. I find it's so much easier when people ask me. Before it just took too many sentences to get to the point, too much explanation. And now, if someone asks me, well, what is GORUCK? And I say, well, we're the rucking company, or we're a rucking company, and they go, well, what's rucking? That's the next question I want them to ask, right? Because then I say, oh, it's walking with weight in a backpack. And it has its roots in the military, but we're making it accessible for people outside of the military. And so it's really just kind of changed that conversation and changed the focus without losing all these cool things that have built GORUCK in the past. So, we think about the boots. Well, you probably know that, having been an OG GRT, is that the boots came about from a joke that, ended up becoming a Wednesday sort of joke about, what do you wear to an event? What boots, what shoes, what footwear should I wear to an event? And it became this holy grail of finding the actual one. I mean, it was a joke, but at the time, but then it became something that Jason, decided, well, there isn't the best one out there. Let's make it. So it's been really cool to see those conversations evolve and not cloud the original premise, right? And, I really, Jason was always so conflicted, in the sense that he was like, well, GORUCK, we're a people company, you know? I mean, this wouldn't exist if people didn't show up to these events. So his heart was in events, but he realized that the gear was, you know, a lot of what put us on the map. And this just allows both to live in harmony with each other. They're not competing anymore. And, you know, there was a time where if you worked at GORUCK, it felt like it was antagonistic's a little too strong, but it just felt like it was just like, oh, well, you do the gear and I do the events. It's a little bit separate, right? It doesn't feel that same way anymore because now we have this overarching idea of like the social fitness activity that all of this relates back to.
Yeah, it just kind of brings it all together under one umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
It's great that you went with that. It's kind of scary, I think, moving in that kind of a direction, right? Because it's tough because you're moving away from something that's like in quotes like Googleable. Like you can Google like
Yes.
what should a gear company do when they're this old? What should an events company do? What, you know, I'm having this issue, what should I do? Let's ask Google. But
Right.
now that you're considering yourself a rucking company, it's like what does a rucking company do? It's like no one knows. So you have to.
It's new territory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's exciting and it's you know it's just kind of taking that step off because it's definitely a new territory. But I'm really excited about it. I've watched the videos that came out. GORUCK, the Rucking company, just incredibly well done. And I guess one last thing I wanted to mention before we continue down the path of women in rucking is that with GORUCK and gear, I remember hanging out with Jason in Seattle in maybe 2012, I want to say, and he had a GORUCK wallet on him. And I asked him about the wallet, and he's like, man, I hate this wallet. He's like, I don't know.
He still has it, by the way.
I bet he does. He was not happy with it. And I asked him, just because I was, I like GORUCK gear. I was like, well, when can we get our hands on it? And he's like, probably never, because I'm not happy with it. And I just thought I've never really had a time to tell that story. But since we're talking about, GORUCK and gear and everything kind of relating together, and maybe it kind of fits in here that, I mean, he probably could have had that wallet made and he probably could have sold out of them because people were asking him for a wallet, but it didn't meet his standards and it didn't meet what he thought the GORUCK brand represented. And so they were never, as far as I know, they were never made. I know they were never sold on the website. And so it's cool to see and refreshing to see like that level of integrity to gear that there's things that, I'm sure he spent a lot of money in R&D and they're not going to see the light of day because they didn't pass his tests.
Yeah. And there were other, ventures and other sort of endeavors, and it, something that Jason is a very like focused individual. And there was a time at GORUCK, around the time Java passed away, where he was a little disenchanted. He was like, I don't know about this. It just felt, he confided, and I don't think he would mind me too much sharing this now, but, I could tell. And I remember looking at him and I said, give it 5 years and see where you're at. So this was about 5 years, this was about 5 years ago. And I said, just hang on, just give it 5 years. And that's always been my mantra. I joined the government. I wasn't sure it was for me. I gave it 5 years, right? Jason spent 5 years in the military as well. So it's funny to think like where we are now, 5 years later, 10 total years at GORUCK. And I love the fact that he is engaged. I haven't seen him this engaged since the very beginning. And to be, it's like, it was building. It's not just a switch, but he loves this new focus. He believes in it wholeheartedly. He's been like just like a mad scientist. I mean, if you saw his office at our home, I walked in there the other day and he had, we don't have any curtains because the kids, they would probably wreck them, but it's just like plain, windows everywhere. And he has dry erase marker all over the windows with diagrams and notes and all this stuff. And it's just filled and it looks a little freaky when you walk in, but he's just meeting with doctors, like talking about the science and the health benefits. And, you know, he's just like, he believes in it. He says, it's working. You know, I see people rucking, and I see these ruck clubs growing, and I see people, you know, telling me about how this has helped them through a physical, mental, emotional, you know, trying time, and how it's been helpful. And, you know, it feels, like you said, it's scary because it's never really been done, you know, it's something that has legs, you know, in the sense that, you know, all you need is a backpack and some weight to put in it, you know, and yet it's energizing to think, well, we're doing this and we're all in, and this is our mission now. And, you know, we had kind of, you know, a strategic, you know, workshop with everybody beginning the year. And it really was exciting because, you know, our team is gathering around, and now everything is just focused on this. And it has been. This isn't just this year. I mean, this has been building to this. And just to add on there, the funny part of this is that the way we kind of fell into this, it was kind of moving that direction, but what sparked it to move a little faster was that Reebok back in 2014 reached out to me just randomly, like, you know, through the internet, and was interested in acquiring us or partnering with us or something, some iteration of that. So we started having talks with them, and we were just like, wait a minute, what, you know? So through those talks, it became clear that, I know on our end, like, wow, there's something here with this rucking business and getting people out, and it's more awesome than walking. It's more accessible than running. And we politely declined Reebok's advances and just said, we're going to do this on our own, you know, and with our community, with our people who have been doing this for years, you know, and who know what rucking is. And you know, a lot of that is tapping into that military expertise. You know, there's a lot of ruckers out there. They may have been turned off by how heavy it was or how miserable it was in the military, but they know what it's about. So they're part of that education.
That is really interesting to hear that Reebok approached you guys. Every now and then there's people on the sides like, oh, you know, what's GORUCK doing? Are they setting themselves up for a buyout, or, you know, stuff like that? But I guess that answers the question of that right there.
Oh gosh, that's not Jason at all. You know, he's or our team for that matter. Like, you know, that was something that we were like, well, tell us more. You know, we'll have this conversation. But as it progressed, it became clear that no, that's not really what we want. And, you know, this is something that Jason has invested a lot in. He feels a lot of ownership over, and he wants to make sure it's done the way, you know, he wants to make sure that it doesn't become a wallet company,
Right.
you know, you know?
Yeah.
So, and yeah.
It's always interesting to hear what other people think of you, right? Because what better way to get an unbiased opinion on what a company, how they think you're doing, than to have talks like that. Every now and then people will reach out about advertising on the All Day Ruckoff podcast. And even if it's from a company that I have no interest at all, I still want to hear what their offer is, because I'm curious what they think advertising space on this is worth. And so I'll ask them.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm not going to be on here selling mattresses or talking about food delivery services for 2 minutes.
Right.
So I'm not going to go down that route, but I'm curious, you know, what the food delivery service thinks an ad spot on this is worth. And so
yeah,
there's a difference, and it's kind of interesting to hear that info. So I'm sure that, you know, Jason and the team thought that was at least interesting to hear what Reebok thought.
It was interesting. And, you know, at that time, you know, Reebok had a partnership with CrossFit and had a newly entered partnership at the time with Spartan Race. And so it kind of, in a lot of ways, made some sense right, on paper. But, as we went along, we were like, this isn't really what we want, right? Sometimes things feel like the quick and easy. And this started to feel like that. And then we met a lot of great people there. Obviously, we met Paul, who is now our head of products and developer of the McAfee One boots with Jason and Richard Rice. And, there's actually another woman who we met through there who has a ton of experience in the apparel and world and footwear world, who's she's going to be joining our board and advising me and GORUCK on those kind of related things. So, these types of things, they open doors, and it was not a waste of time at all, even though if you had asked Jason at the time, he was like, there's, a year plus of my life, and back and forth. But sometimes it's going through those exercises, right? And like you said, hearing what someone else's opinion is can really burn thought. I mean, it gets you out of your bubble and opens up some opportunity, which, like I said, I think we could have gotten there eventually. It's possible we wouldn't have quite as smoothly or as quickly, because things, they take time, right? I mean,
you sure do.
You've been doing this for 5 years now, and we've been at this for 10 years, and it's you don't get famous overnight, it takes there's a lot of, people talk about this a lot, especially on social media. They like all these iceberg memes, but it's true, it wouldn't be a meme if it weren't true to some extent.
Yeah, it's so true. I remember the first day that All Day Ruckoff had over 100 visitors on the website in a day, which is like peanuts in terms of visits. But it was like 2 years after I started the website, and it was mostly because GORUCK retweeted something on Twitter, and that brought a lot of traffic in. And so, it's just been interesting to watch that progression, and it's a slow progression, especially when you're starting out. And it's just something that you have to grind through and do because you love, because it's at the end of the day, you have to be happy. So speaking of doing things that you love, you're out of people ops now. And so you get to have a focus on women and rucking. And it sounds like that's a fairly new transition, that you get to spend a lot more of your time on this. So what are some of your plans?
Yes, it is new, and a lot is still kind of in development. I mean, there's a lot of ideas, but there's a lot of things to be done that are kind of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, in terms of there's just more attention that's needed on the women's apparel line. Talking to some groups of women and asking them, well, what needs to be changed, and what would we like to see at events? So it's just kind of having those conversations and being more plugged in and looking at the females in our community, spotlighting them, having those conversations. So that's a lot of it. I've been working with Paul and our apparel manufacturer to make some small changes, or to try to add some of the products that are on the men's line, but, make them right for women. So everyone tells me that's a very imperfect and long and, difficult process of, finding the right apparel. So I've been working on, getting some pieces in the works, building out that line. But from the Rucking standpoint, we've been talking about, what it looks like to have, kind of bringing more attention back to the all women's events. And, something that Jason put forth to me that I really haven't figured out yet, and I need to just do some more thinking, but also talking to folks about is what is an event that would really showcase women and the strength of women in our community. And part of that is that, if you look at the numbers for selection, we've had one female pass, and then there haven't been that many men who've passed, so that's not entirely earth-shattering. But what we want to keep the standard with that, and it's obviously I applaud any and all women who train and show up for that challenge and get as far as possible with that. And I don't think that should preclude anyone from going. But what are some other events that would really, play to their strengths and not, when you're talking about 45 pounds dry, that, I can tell you that my body frame's not going to support that over 48 hours, it's just not. But, what else could do it? So team assessment has been kind of an exciting idea. And we're curious to beta that this year and see what's going to happen from that standpoint for women. And just looking at other opportunities to talk about rucking and our events in ruck clubs and how this is affecting women out there and the positive benefits of it and the community building aspects and, the fact that I like to think it's very inclusive. It's not about, okay, well, everything's separate. The men do this and women do that. No, we know that's not how it works, in real life. And I started a ruck club here in Jacksonville in my neighborhood, not to compete with the GORUCK Ruck Club, but just because I value, along with my other friends that are mothers, the ability to just walk out my front door and meet at a street corner once a week, or as we can gather with a group of moms. And sometimes some people bring their kids, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the husbands tag along, sometimes they don't. So it's like there's no real like, okay, this is just women only sort of thing. But it does create a space for women to organize and to kind of set the terms, to make sure it is going to be convenient, it is going to be allow for someone who, hey, I've got my kids this time. I know I'm just going to have enough going on, pushing them in the stroller. But the woman who's, training for an event, she's going to bring a little more weight. She's going to tack on a few more miles at the end of it, So there's this really great sort of aspect to it. And I always tell this story. I always laugh because I'm a college runner and I love running. I don't like running by myself at all. I don't. I like college team running ruined me for that. Whenever I ask another friend in the neighborhood to run with me, they immediately say no. They don't even give me a chance. They're like, no, you ran in college. And I'm like, it doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to run with you, doesn't mean I'm running the same times that I did. But we don't even get a chance to, for the most part. I'd have to really work at it. But I can say, hey, will you meet me for a ruck? And the conversation is just, I get more yeses. And I really love that. And so we've been doing that. We've got a ruck scheduled tomorrow at 9:00. We're going to ruck with our kids, and we're going to end up at one of the friends' houses because it's her 1-year-old's birthday. So we're going to have a brunch there. And it just because it starts to feel organic.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I get the same feedback as well. If I ask people if they want to go for a run, it's usually no. It's tough. I wasn't a runner in high school or anything or in college, but I started getting a little bit competitive with running. So I've got my times down recently, but at the same time, rucking, it's so much more accessible. It's a lot more of the same pace. And for some reason, I get a lot more yeses when I ask people if they want to go out and ruck. So it's
that's great.
It's good to hear that that's, I guess, completely opposite sides of the country. We're both experiencing the same thing.
Right. And when you're pushing a stroller or, your kid wants to stop and see the bunnies that are, outside or whatever, or there's snow on the ground or whatever, it makes it a little easier to say, okay, no big deal. If you made me stop 15 times during my run, I would feel pretty disappointed by the end of it,
Yes.
Just felt like I didn't get going. But a ruck, I don't feel that same way. And so, I had to make a hard decision a couple years ago when my third child was born. I coached, I was an assistant coach at the high school where Jason and I graduated from in town It's a really great running program, a great head coach. He's Irish, very colorful, but just excellent at what he does. And I loved it. It's just part of me, part of my past. And I love coaching the girls and seeing them, become lifelong runners and whatnot because of their love, because of this great experience and bonding experience they had with the team. But I had to make a decision because it was across town, and I just felt like I was running ragged. And I just said, I can wait on that. That if one of my kids is a runner, maybe I'll get a chance to coach again and be attached to that right now. But right now I really want to double down on, not only my family, because kids are little, they need me now, and GORUCK. And that was like a pivotal point for me where I was like, I still run. I still do a race here and there with my college, teammates. Or training for something this year, kind of like we're all turning 40, so it's going to be fun. But the rucking has become just part of my daily life, and it's really cool when I get text messages from friends, and they're like, "I see people out rucking all the time," and I'm like, "Oh, great!" It's starting. It's going to take probably another 10 years, Brian. But it's happening, and I think it's really cool. Like all these kind of interesting people like yourself and in our community who, it's kind of, we're all setting this trend. We're the weirdo runners back in the 70s that would just do, get together. I think about the Hashhound Harriers, which I love. I don't know if you know about that, but living abroad for about, almost 10 years, I really connected with the expat community, living far from home through this running group, the drinking group with the running problem, as they like to say. And, I see this happening with rucking, and it's not going to happen super fast. It's going to have to happen organically. And, but we are the ones that have been doing these GORUCK events from the beginning. Like, it's really part of this. Like, you're the early adopters, right? You're the ones that said, sure, why not? I'll try this, and it's, fast forward 10 years, I can see a time where, this is just really starting to pick up more steam, and it's becoming ubiquitous. And next thing you know, there's ruck clubs and other all over the place. And if you travel, to a different city or different country, you'll be able to connect and have this in common with people. And it's just really cool to think about and to dream out loud and to see it actually happening.
It's so nice, especially now that GORUCK has the Ruck Club map on their website and all that integrated in. If you're traveling, you can easily find, especially if you're going to a major city, another group to ruck with, and you're seeing that happen all over. And it's just such a cool thing to see, grow organically, because back in 2011, if you're traveling somewhere, you would just have to post out on the Tough page and say, I'm going to be in the city as anyone else nearby. But now there's resources and ways to get connected. It makes it really, really convenient. And just to talk back a couple points, when I'm home with the kids and I'm trying to figure out, it's tough. I'm one of those people who likes to exercise every day. And if I don't exercise during the day, then at night, I'm like, oh man, should I go out for a night ruck or a run or something? Like, I need to do something every day. So if I'm home with both kids, it's easy to throw them in the double stroller and go out for a ruck and get that in. Where if I was just a runner, it's like nearly impossible to run with a double stroller.
I actually hate it. I actually don't find it enjoyable at all as a runner to run with a single or a double.
It's just more work at that point. It's not fun. I like running with people, but it's not fun for the kids because they see stuff, like you said, and they want to stop. They see a dog, they want to say hi. And it's like, no, we're running. But when you're out rucking, it's a completely different thing.
It is. I can totally relate. And it's really great to hear you, as a dad, weighing in on this, because more power to the moms and dads who stick to their regimen, pushing those strollers and passing people in races with strollers. that's pretty intense, and I can respect it, but I have never had an interest in that. I don't feel like my arms move the same way. My gait changes. I don't get the same, kind of high from running, doing that. And I find it to be very disruptive and difficult. And frankly, like, sometimes I feel like it's almost dangerous because I'm trying to push them and then the kids are trying to wiggle out and, somehow, I've had like the stroller kind of almost tip over because I didn't have it in the right mode, So, yeah.
The way I think about it, and I have no idea if this is correct or not, and so I'm going to apologize for anyone listening in advance who goes for runs all the time with their kids in strollers, and you both enjoy it. But when I look at it and do it, I feel like when it's running with the stroller, it's I want to go for a run, and I have this kid who I also have to take care of, and so I guess they kind of have to come with me. I can't leave them at home. And
Right.
so it's me running and the kid has to come along and they just kind of live through it. But when it's rucking, it's me rucking with my kid. I'm pushing the stroller, we're pointing at things, we're talking. Ada's not two yet, but she's learning words and she knows things and she points at stuff and we'll have little conversations and we'll stop at the park and I might do some pull-ups and she'll go down the slide and then we'll go on our way. We'll go out of our way and see a dog and all that stuff. It feels like I'm doing something with my kids and not I'm doing something and my kids just so happen to be there.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I never ever verbalized it, but I think I've had that feeling before. It feels like you're just strapping them in and saying, you're held hostage while I get my run in. and obviously walking is fine too. I mean, walking is a great activity, but if you want a little more, this is what I love about rucking is that it does add that extra element to it. So I find that like I said, I'm less annoyed by an interruption. If we're on a ruck and I'm pushing the stroller or the kids want to get out and walk next to me, they can keep up, because I'm not trying to go breakneck speed. I'm just going their pace, and still getting something done, still getting, something in. And if I, put a 20-pound plate in, I can feel it afterwards. And, I've done some work and that feels a little more satisfying.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And that's such a wonderful point because when you're going for a run, you don't have your ruck on your back. If you're walking, then you're taking a break. I mean, that's like your two modes, right? You have running where you're running and you've got the walking and you're taking a break. And when you're rucking, even if you're looking at the flowers or the kids walking slow, that weight is still on your back. Like it doesn't make it any easier. You still have the weight, you're still carrying that. And it doesn't really matter that you're moving that much slower because you're still getting the workout in. And it satisfies, at least for myself, that crave that I need to get a workout in. And when I'm done, that's gone and all's good in the world.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, lately, like with this rucking challenge, which I found to be very fun because I've mixed it up quite a bit. Like I'm actually going to meet GRT's in town, and she was like, "Hey, do you want to get your mile in with us?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I'm going to meet up with her. We're going to meet up and do that. But I've also done it while on a work call. I'll just be out walking, rucking walking with my pack on, and talking. And then, of course, I've done it a few times in the afternoons after school, and the kids, they throw some books in their backpack and they want to do it with me, and they can do the mile, they can, for the most part, and they'll actually ruck with me on our little mile route. And then there's been the times where I've left it until after the kids go to bed, and Monster and I have had some quality time getting our mile in. But you can see like there's so many different ways to get it done, and I like that, the aspect of it. You could do it, while traveling and with kids, with a dog, with work, with others, on your own. So it's been really interesting to do that mile a day. And I'm committed to it because I don't really want to do the PT.
Same here.
Yeah.
I've been getting some of mine in at a, 10, 10:30, 11 at night just because I don't want to do the PT the next day. It's easier. Because then you have to do
Yeah.
the PT and the mile for that day. So it's really worth it to just get
Yeah.
the mile in.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
I'm really excited just talking to you about the future of GORUCK. The GORUCK is the Rucking company, your new focus within the company. I think it's gonna be really exciting, and I think some really awesome things are gonna come out of it. What are you most excited for the for the coming future for 2019 for GORUCK?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I've got a lot of ideas and a lot of things in development, but I'm just really excited to hear what women have to say. I think we've got women that have we've got small groups of women and they speak up, but I want to hear from more. I want to hear their stories. I want to hear how Rucking or GORUCK or this community has helped them in their lives and how it's gotten them through something or just how it's been a fitness journey, things like that. Like that, I'm really excited to hear that because I feel like it's just GORUCK to me is a microcosm of a lot of things. We're a mixed group of people, and we all have this kind of common interest in the sense that we love this community based. It's not this I generation. We really like this idea of it's not about you and the service element, the things that are rooted in our military community. I'm really just excited because I've been, just by kind of getting into this role, I've met some people, in the military, outside of the military spouses, and there's just a lot of great stuff going on. A lot of things that people are doing, and I think it's really empowering, right? And that's what I want to really tap into and to talk about more and share those experiences as well as some of my own. That's what really gets me excited, and just and as a not quite on that same level, but there's this other element that we've been talking about on the women's side of thing in terms of like travel, like how to travel as a woman, either if you're on your own or, with someone else or in a group, what does it look like to be a good traveler? And I want to really talk about like, it's kind of this more accessible, it's not this super high end luxurious travel. And yet it's not this super, it's also not this, I'm going to go as a college student with a backpack everywhere, and just live in hostels. It's somewhere in between. Like where does it make sense to, have the more authentic experience and do so in a way that's, fun and safe and adventurous without breaking the bank? Or, how do you do it as a parent, and I think there's a lot that goes into that can tie either directly or indirectly with Rucking. Like I'm getting ready to go to Asia for the first time next month. I'm going to meet with the Tokyo Ruck Club over there, and there's a larger event through our Ingress partnership that we're having a bunch of GORUCK events happening there, and the largest sort of anomalies that they've had there have been in Tokyo. So I'm really excited to see that on kind of a really big stage. And I'm taking my mom with me because the last time she was in Asia, she was there as a toddler when it was still occupied Japan when my grandfather was stationed there in the Air Force. So I feel like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to have her join me. And yet I know I'm going to be pulling her roll back, for her. And so part of me is like, I've got to travel really light and really practical, but still be able to be flexible to, if there is some occasion where I need to dress up, or if there is something where I need to do a GORUCK event, which I'm going to do, or if I'm going to meet with the Ruck Club and, I'm going to have to be versatile, but I'm going to have to do so in a way that it allows me to free up my moment and movement so I can help someone else. Right. And that's kind of that's what moms and dads and a lot of us do, right? If you're in a position where you can help someone else, you should be prepared, right? So I want to talk more about that, as and explore that, and to see what sort of interest there is with that, from a Rucking and GORUCK perspective.
It's always fun to search around on the internet and look at, people's packing tips and travel tips, and
Mm-hmm.
everything is so focused right now on the one bag, right? On one bagging it and going completely minimal. But I mean, you're a parent, I'm a parent. I've got, two kids. That's like nearly impossible for me to to meet some of these things. It's like, well, where do you put the kids' spare clothes, and what about the diapers? And it's
Right.
it'll be exciting to hear about a more real. I mean, the more realistic travel. I can dream about this whole one bag thing where I'm going to be, writing posts for All Day Ruckoff on the beach and then recording podcasts at night or however it works.
Right.
But the realistic thing is that, okay, are the kids sleeping? All right, time to call up and record this, or time to,
Right.
fit it in like that.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
exciting.
The adventure changes. The variables are different, but you just have to adapt.
Absolutely.
to
And
them.
I think if GORUCK is really great at doing things like that, it's adapting.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. I like to think that too. And I think, when I look back, something that makes me really happy is that we have evolved and continue to evolve. And I like to think a lot of that is from clarity of vision and also from input, right? From listening to people. You can't really adapt in a way that's going to continue to let you survive from a Darwinian perspective unless you are really in tune with what's going on around you, So I like to think that part of what like our customer service team and our cadre and our people, building and running our events, as well as the people who are building our gear, is that we're listening to what the people who are actually out there rucking, doing the events, wearing the apparel, what they're saying. And that's not to say that everything changes because one person, didn't like one thing, right? It's more of a consistency, of like, well, this isn't the first time I've heard this, and this actually makes sense. And we bring it back and we talk about it and we say, we tried this and it's actually we're not having the result we needed to. So let's go back to the drawing board and see, if it's how we can improve upon that.
That's phenomenal. And that's such a great approach to take with all that stuff. And it's awesome to hear you say that. First off, I really appreciate you taking all this time to talk with me about this. Is there anything else that you want to talk about related to women in rucking, your new role at GORUCK, but with the focus on that, or GORUCK in general?
Well, I just want to say that, it's a lot is still kind of in the development, ideation phase. And I am interested in hearing, if people have thoughts on it. So I am kind of in a collection mode, but also, working off of some things that are tried and true, right? And really looking at things that make sense to continue on, but also new, what makes sense to kind of try a new direction or talk about it. So I'm really open to this. And I'd love to get back on again and talk with you, Brian, once, some more sort of paths have been, checked out and we're saying, okay, we're going to try this. We're going to do this. This is where we're going. So I'd love to talk to you about that. Something that I've been working on is again, sort of my origin story with GORUCK and my background and things like that, because I think it ties in really nicely and it's applicable. And it's interesting, like I said, from the female perspective, given the type of work I did in Africa and even in South America, serving my country. but doing it in kind of a different way than like an SF guy on the team does. But there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of overlap. So I'm really interested in kind of starting the conversation with that and kind of seeing where it leads. And part of this is I think there's a lot of interesting conversation going on right now about women and empowerment and all these sorts of, topics that are related to it. And what I could say is to try to keep an open mind, is that I find that there's just a lot of things that it does make sense if it is a quote unquote man's world to just play that game. It does make sense to work within that structure sometimes. But on the flip side, there are many opportunities where it actually makes sense to just do what works from a female perspective, right? And it's kind of trying to discern between those. So I've been doing a lot of thought on that and actually conversation with folks. And I think it's like most things, it's somewhere in the middle, and like sometimes this is the way it is. And sometimes this is what we're going to do. We're going to just set new rules, and we're going to have our own conversations and then relate them back. And I think it's a really just exciting time because there's been a lot of great work done in the past, right? On human rights and women's rights, but it's ongoing. It's continuing to happen. And I like to think that, the progress is still moving forward. And that's kind of what I want to touch upon. It's not just as simple as like, hey, what's it like to be a woman in a man's world? What's it like to be, a woman, a brand within a very masculine brand? It's not often that black or white. There's something to it to say, yes, there are these aspects and we recognize them, but there's a lot more going on, than just the simple dynamic. At the end of the day, we're all people and our wishes, wants, and desires are probably not that different. So yes, there are some things, there are truisms, there are different cultures, there are different norms, but as long as we understand and respect them, we'll be able to reach our fullest potential. And I really want to capture that and what we're doing here, to say, gosh, to be a woman and in a GORUCK event, playing the part you do. And it's really about what are you going to bring to the table? What giving the best that you have to offer, and having other people recognize that and respect it is really it's just really what I think GORUCK is about and has been since the beginning.
Thank you so much for listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast. I had a ton of fun talking to Emily about her new role at GORUCK, as well as just learning more about her and her first event. If you want to check out the show notes, which has links to everything we talked about, you can head on over to alldayruckoff.com/podcast/episode-091. If you want to support the podcast, as always, you can leave a review on either iTunes or on our Facebook page. Those are truly appreciated. I'm excited to have Emily back on again in the future to talk about where her new role at GORUCK takes her and what comes from that. Thank you so much for all of the support, and don't forget, attitude is everything. Keep yours positive and drink hard, rock harder.